Welcome back to Vernon Speakeasy. We're just gonna have some easy tips and tricks that you can run through as far as quick and great service for your guests. So one of the easiest things that I always come off to is greet them immediately. There's nothing worse than a bar guest has than looking at their bartender, seeing them talk to other guests, other people, and not being greeted. It makes you feel unwanted, it makes you feel unwelcome. So even if it's just water and you're gonna come get their drink here in a moment, you'll set down your 2 bar napkins, have their water presented and ready, say, I'll come back for your drink in a moment. You could be busy in your well, you could be busy doing other things, but don't leave them unacknowledged. They have to know that you know they're there. Otherwise, it already starts off a bad experience. And once you know you get that bad taste in your mouth, it kind of lingers for a little bit. Another thing that I always like to go over with is proper knowledge of what your guest wants as well. If a guest says Jack and Coke, you should always ask short or tall. You'll be surprised to find how many people say tall thinking that it would just come that way. There's little simple things like that with martinis. For instance, there's some people who would prefer a martini shaken versus stirred, so you can ask them, what's your preference on shaken or stirred?
That's stirred, not shaken. That was right, wasn't it?
Perfect. Cheers.
Cheers.
But there's those little things that help curate your guest experience to make it next level and make it better throughout their entire thing. So another tip and trick that I could tell you to help you, especially for a lot more modern bars, is learn your bitters. So there are definitely different types of bitters that are gonna go into your old fashions, your Manhattans, and your Vieux Carrés.
Speaking of a Manhattan, did you know that New York and Maryland completely ignored Prohibition?
Those scallywags. But they sure did. 100% ignored it, treated it like it was nothing. So the old fashions, Manhattans, and Vieux Carrés were flowing aplenty. However, they knew their bitters back in the day. Just like I'm telling you, you better know your bitters here. There's all kinds of different kinds. Our house for the old fashioned is gonna be Reagan's Orange and Angostura aromatic bitters going in there. But we start going into things like the Vieux Carré and Manhattan. We would much rather prefer a little bit more Peychaud's, or even the Manhattan, you could argue that you would wanna use just the Angostura aromatic. So really, you want to know your bitters, know your guest's profile, and understand what types of flavors and things that they want coming into their cocktail experience. One of the things I like to preach behind my bar is precision. So that can also mean taking care of your counts and making sure that you do a 1 count per every 1/4 ounce, so that way you can have an accurate count all the way up, or it can even come down to as simple of things as your stir. A lot of people take this for granted, but when you are stirring a cocktail, when you're taking care of anything, you really have to be gentle to not bruise your alcohol. So if I hear my bartenders doing anything other than this, if I hear rustle, it drives me crazy and it has to be corrected right away. A nice gentle stir, we're not trying to bruise our alcohol. In this case, it's just cranberry juice, but same difference, same ideology. You don't want to bruise if you have a stir. So if I'm gonna pour this out, if you go to the top closely, you'll see that there are no ice chips in there, and that's the biggest part. That's what we talk about with bruising, and that's what I mean about precision. Whether it comes to count, whether it comes to your actual cocktail skill, it's very important that we have precision whenever we're doing our cocktails. Another classic tip and trick is when you're in the bar, you're being observed more than anybody else. When you're bartending, you don't have that blanket that some server or some back of house does where you can almost be hidden in a sense. You are just out in the open, you are seen 100%. Hygiene's important, taking care of your glassware is important. It will always be seen how well you polish, how well you take care of everything. So make sure that you actually give it the utmost of care and that you really put forth your best effort. Otherwise, you're just gonna be seen. You're just gonna be spotted right away. And people don't like lazy bartenders. They'll call you out. Kind of regressing a little bit, going back to that point, knowing your counts. Super important. You really wanna make sure that when you go 1, 2, 3, 4, that that's an ounce. You want to try to get that 1/4 ounce accuracy just right. Because if you don't, then you're gonna be giving people either too much or even too little alcohol. We definitely don't want to overserve, and then underserving stinks too, because I don't know if you've ever gotten a cocktail and you think, oh, all I taste is Coca-Cola in here. You know, must have only put an ounce of liquor in, that stinks. You don't want to be on either side of the spectrum, leaving too buzzed or just not even getting enough of a cocktail in the first place. So when it comes down to different cocktails, different understanding, learn the base cocktails. You will struggle so much more if you don't understand different types of sayings for a Cape Cod. It's just vodka cranberry with lime juice. Long Island iced tea, clear liquors, a sweet and sour mix possibly, or a lemon and simple syrup. It kind of depends on your own recipe, but you've really got to know your base cocktails. You got to understand the different names for those, because people will just hit you with, can I get a paper plane? Or can I get, the Cape Cod is one that my mind is continuously going back to because I always think it's the silliest to hear. So I'm like, just tell me you want vodka cranberry and a lime, you know, it's so easy. What kind of vodka do you want? A 7 and 7, you know, things like that. But you should know your very basic call drinks. That way you're not sitting there feeling silly or looking uneducated if somebody asks for something so simple that you should know, even though it's annoying. Don't be afraid to ask your bar manager or your lead bartender to experiment with different cocktails. Sometimes for our cocktails, we do seasonal, we do monthly, we do different style cocktails. So don't be afraid to ask your manager to be able to play around and experiment. Of course, don't go slamming the cocktail after you make it. You're only supposed to have a taste and use your own knowledge of what you can bring to the table, your base cocktails, how you can elevate them, how you can change them. So just be sure and do not be afraid to ask your bar manager or your bartender, your lead bartender, if you can experiment with different cocktails, especially if it's gonna go towards the betterment of the restaurant. If you're just trying to do it for willy-nilly, then of course they're probably gonna say no. But if you're trying to do it for the restaurant, I'm sure that that bar manager would probably like a little bit of help with coming up with some stuff too, because chances are you've thought of something they haven't. Thank you for coming back to Vernon's Speakeasy. Don't forget to go down below, like and subscribe, check out our other social media pages, and get a reservation for one of the best restaurants in New Mexico. Signing off.